Welcome to part 2 of Sybiz Vision development, developing third-party applications using the Sybiz Vision API. If you haven't seen the first part, I suggest you do. It shows you how to successfully set up a project to log in to a company database in Sybiz Vision. This next section is going to take us through producing some customers on a list and allowing you to right click and go and view some information on those customers. So let's go into the project that I created in part 1 of this series, and we can go from there. Okie doke. So for those who weren't aware, we wrote an application that had a whole batch of login information, and we could log into our system. So now we're happy with what we're able to do from a login perspective. We've got a form here that fires up. We want it to do something. So I'm going to go to my toolbox. I'm only going to use basic Windows controls for this demonstration. You can use whatever you like. So I'm going to put a data grid view onto this form. Dock it in the parent container. I'm not going to allow add, edit or delete, but I'll add or resize the columns if you like. Okay. Then going to come in here and I'm going to add a project data source. It's going to be an object. And I'll go to the platform. Go to debtors. And I'll go to customer info list. Now, lookup info list is a very simplistic list with just code and description. The info list delivers a reasonable number of the fields that a customer has. And I'll hit finish. And as you can see, the grid gets pre-populated with all the fields that are required. And it creates a binding source. I then come into the code of my form, and I've got to go and add another event. Okay, I've got to load the data in. So again, I've got a little snippet of code that I will use. Come here, go to the events, go to the load event, and go and add my snippet. And you'll notice customer is showing as not recognizable. I've got some tools here. I will just import the reference and away we go. Now, this goes and says if customer can access. So do I have access rights to be able to view customers? If I do, I'm going to set the data source on customer info list, which is in the platform.debtors that I specified, and get list. I just want to go and get the list. All right. Let's run the application. And here we have a list of all the customers in my company. Click on the fields, doesn't do anything. So what are we going to do next? First, let's just tidy everything up. Let's call this form a decent name. My Butte application. Be good if I spelled Butte right. Let's make it my application. Okay, so we've now got my application. And on the grid here, I want to set a few other things. I want, when people select a row, to have its selection mode as full row select. Yep. And I think that should be about it. Should do for the time being. Then I want to add a context menu. So here's a context menu strip. I'll go add that to the screen here. And I want to type in a few items in here that we can access from a menu. So I'm going to say create standard sales invoice. And this will be view customer invoices. Done. Then on the grid, we have to specify that context menu strip. And away you go. All right. So now if we run the application, I get to see my records. I can move my columns about. I can select particular rows, and you notice the whole row gets selected. And if I right click, I've now got two options: create standard sales invoice and view customer invoices. I've got some spaces missing. I'll tidy that up in a sec. There we go. So I've now created an application that I can see my customers and I can do a couple of things on it. So what I'll do is I'll do both of them for you in the one. So here we go. First thing is I'm going to go and add a Windows form, and this is going to be customer invoice view. Okay, let's make this a bit bigger. I'm going to put a tab control on here. I can't make it there. Let's dock it. Then the tab pages. Let's change the names of them. Going to have one called header, one called lines. So on header. Okay, so then I'm going to go back to the data grid view again. I'm going to drag one of those onto the header area and dock it. Grab one onto the lines. Okay. And then we need to go and set up the data source and turn some of these things off. Probably also set selection mode if you're selecting it to the full row select. Okay, and we're done. We'll even call this customer invoice view. Okay, good. So there's our customer invoice view form. All right, save that. So now with our context menu, we need to be able to find out when we're picking one of those, what's happening. Okay, so if I type in here select case, and it will be e dot oops, no, it's wrong item. It's actually item clicked. Okay. So in here, I'm going to go select E dot clicked item. Dot name will do. And then here I'm going to have, we've got two buttons. We've got one which is view customer tool strip menu item dot name. We'll do something with that one. And we've got case create, I think that's what I called it, create standard sales menu strip item dot name, and we'll do something there. And then I will add the default, done. So there we go. That's now got a structure to go and fire that off. So now I'm going to go and create a function called create standard invoice. And I'll create another one which is view customer invoices. Okay. And with the tools that I use, I can just go and generate the stub for each of these. Okay, let's copy this one, make my life easy, as that's not working. And there we go. Let's get rid of these throws. That's why. Because it pre-filled this in. I didn't get access to it. So we have now the two methods to go and do what we require. So with the view customer invoice, we'll just do a form which equals a new customer invoice view. And it'll show a dialog. And there we go. The next part is we need to pass it the customer ID. Okay, and there's nothing in there at the moment. So let's go into the code here, and we're going to go and set up some extra code in here, which will be a public property customer ID. That's better. That's how I should have done it in the first place. Okay, so I've got a customer ID. So if I come to my form here, I want to be able to set the customer ID for the form. So frm.customer_ID equals direct cast. Binding source dot current customer info dot ID, and I'm done for the view. Okay, now if I run it, nothing's going to show. So I'll come to the customer view that I've created here. Yep, and I'm going to have to set up some data. So let's come in here and go add a project data source, object, debtors inquiry, sales invoice history, I'm on the header, so I'm going to say header list. On the lines, lines list. Now the header one with the control, it's obviously not that great with its field, so I've turned it off to none. We'll then come back here and we'll do header list again. Now we get all the fields. Alright, so we've now got that done. So it's now bound with all these binding sources. Then all I actually have to go do is on the load event, take the binding source that I've created, go to where I set that object up, get it, and pass the customer ID in. Run. Now here's my customers. If I come down to demonstration and view customer invoices, I get nothing. Need to go and check that, don't we? So, view customer invoices, view customer invoices. Because it's the wrong method calls. So, let's take this one. And we'll try it again. And here we go. I've got one invoice in there with one header and one line. Thanks for that, and we'll get to another one where we actually go, the next tutorial will actually go through creating a standard invoice and seeing it reflect into the views that we're looking at from the invoice history. Thank you.